I don't always dress up. But when I do, I like to put on my robe and wizard's hat. Anyway, they say he whispered prophecies into the ears of kings, that he saw the future written in blood and stars, that he called dragons from the earth and vanished without a trace. A bit like my friends when I started wearing this hat. But behind the beard, the staff, the spellbooks, there may have been nothing at all. He's been called the greatest wizard in history, but history never claimed him. This is Pantheon mythology, and this is Merlin, the greatest wizard that never was. Or was he? If you too want to be the greatest wizard in history, check out Pantheon Apparel, our clothing brand inspired by myths, folklore and legends. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Link in the description.
When most people picture Merlin, they don't see a man. They see a myth already processed, an old, bearded sage, hooded in robes, leaning on a wooden staff, whispering wisdom into Arthur's ear. He's Gandalf before Gandalf, Dumbledore before Dumbledore, the ultimate advisor, the spell singer behind the throne. But that Merlin isn't ancient. He's modern fantasy, polished and packaged through novels, Disney films and role-playing games, a product of storytelling shortcuts and archetypes. The wise old wizard who exists only to guide the chosen one, cast a few spells and then fade into legend. The truth is messier. The Merlin we think we know is a patchwork, stitched from folklore, propaganda, prophecy and fear. And if we start pulling at the threads, the whole wizard unravels. Merlin doesn't enter the written record through ancient myth or pagan hymn. He enters through a book written with an agenda. In the 12th century, Geoffrey of Monmouth produced the Historia Regum Britannia, a sweeping account of Britain's kings filled with battles, miracles and prophecy. And right in the middle of it stands Merlin, not casting spells or guiding Arthur just yet, but speaking in riddles, conjuring visions, and predicting the fate of nations. Geoffrey's Merlin, known as Merlinus Ambrosius, was largely his own invention, a fusion of older tales and poetic license. And his prophecies? They weren't sacred. They were strategic. Geoffrey wrote during a time of political instability, when the Norman rulers of England were still cementing their claim to power. Merlin's visions just so happened to affirm that claim. He spoke of dragons rising and falling, of rightful kings defeating tyrants, of a glorious future for Britain under the right lineage, of course. It was myth used as a weapon, prophecy packaged as politics. Merlin became a tool of empire, cloaked in legend, lending ancient authority to very modern ambitions. And the most brilliant part? By casting his predictions in cryptic language and symbolic beasts, they could be twisted to fit almost any outcome. He was a mouthpiece, one that spoke in poetry, but served the crown. Before Merlin became a mouthpiece for monarchs, he was something else entirely. Myrddin Urth, the wild man of the woods. In the oldest Welsh traditions, he's not found in courts or councils, but in the forest. A bard and warrior driven mad by the slaughter of the Battle of Archetypal. His mind fractures, he flees into the wilderness, where he begins to see visions. He speaks in riddles, lives among animals, and wanders the trees as a man caught between worlds. In Celtic belief, prophecy wasn't born from calm reflection. It came through frenzy. Seers known as the Awanuthion would tremble, chant, and fall into trance-like states to access hidden truths. Myrddin follows that path. He becomes a creature of ecstatic insight, of raw, unfiltered revelation. This Merlin has no place beside kings. He belongs to the storm, to the silence between the trees. He shares his roots with Swina, the Irish king cursed to roam the woods, both of them symbols of the thin line between vision and madness. But this wild figure was too unruly to survive untouched. Over time, he was reshaped, brought out of the forest and into the service of empire. The Merlin who raged beneath the canopy became the Merlin placed at a king's side. And yet, even in the polished court wizard, the wild still lingers. As later writers tried to make sense of Merlin's power, they reached for something darker, something that could explain how a man could know the unknowable, see through time, and bend kings to his counsel. In some medieval accounts, Merlin isn't just a prophet, he's a child of an incubus, a demonic spirit that lies with a mortal woman in the night. The result is something unnatural, a boy born of sin, but not consumed by it, a vessel of infernal power with a mind sharpened beyond human limits. This version of Merlin wasn't found in the forest or at court. He was marked from birth. His father, faceless and infernal, his mother a pious woman who prayed for her son's salvation. The church embraced the paradox, a child cursed by hell, yet chosen to serve heaven, a sinner turned prophet. It was a convenient solution to a theological problem. Prophecy was real, but where did it come from? Pagan sources couldn't be trusted, and wild seers like Merlin were too closely tied to the old ways. By claiming Merlin's gifts came from a demonic lineage, the church could contain the threat. They could frame his power as something God allowed, something dangerous but useful, just like Merlin himself. In this form, Merlin becomes a warning. Knowledge that doesn't come from Scripture must come from elsewhere, and even if it serves the right side, it must be watched, controlled, feared. Of all of the roles Merlin takes on, none carry more weight than that of kingmaker. In the later medieval romances, especially in the Vulgate cycle and Malory's La Morte d'Arthur, Merlin shapes Arthur's rise from the very beginning. He arranges the union of Uther Pendragon and Igraine, using enchantment to bypass walls and appearances. From that act, Arthur is conceived, and Merlin ensures the child is hidden and protected from the chaos of succession. He places Arthur with Sir Ector, away from courtly intrigue, and waits. When the time is right, Merlin unveils the sword in the stone, a challenge disguised as fate. Arthur draws the sword, the people take notice, and a king emerges, exactly as Merlin intended. Merlin remains by Arthur's side through his early reign, offering counsel, weaving alliances, and guiding decisions. His power flows through foresight and manipulation, through ritual, illusion, and carefully timed intervention. Every move builds the kingdom's foundation. Every silence carries intent. In this role, Merlin reflects older figures from myth, Odin leading heroes with cryptic wisdom, Tiresias revealing fate through trance and vision. He becomes the architect of a mythic age, a force that sets history in motion through presence rather than command. And as Arthur steps into power, Merlin begins to slip into the background. His part in the story fades, but the foundation he laid holds. For now. As Merlin's influence fades from Arthur's court, a new pattern emerges, one where the end is not marked by battle or betrayal, but by enchantment. In the later romances, particularly those shaped by French and English courtly literature, Merlin meets his downfall through the hands of a woman. Most often it is Nimue, the Lady of the Lake, or Morgana, Arthur's half-sister, who brings the story to its turning point. In these tales, Merlin becomes enamored with Nimue and teaches her the secrets of magic. But the student learns too well. She traps him in a cave, a tree, or beneath a stone, depending on the version, and leaves him there, alive but sealed away, a voice still echoing, but no longer heard. When Morgana plays the role, the tale shifts toward rivalry and vengeance. Both variations reflect the same fear. A powerful man undone not by force, but by knowledge passed on. These stories mirror the growing tensions of their time. As medieval Europe struggled with the questions of power, gender, and control over learning, Merlin's fate became a parable. The old magician, bearer of forgotten wisdom, removed from the world by a woman who dares to learn. It's not just personal downfall, it's the locking away of ancient truths, the wild prophet, the court advisor, the demonic oracle, all sealed in silence. Merlin doesn't die. He's buried beneath narrative, trapped in the margins of the very legends he helped create. Merlin stands at a crossroads where two belief systems meet. On one side, the wilderness of the old world, rooted in nature, in druidic rites, in visions drawn from wind, tree, and stone. On the other, the rising dominance of Christianity, with its saints, scriptures, and suspicion of the unseen. Merlin becomes the bridge, but also the battleground. His earliest form belongs in the forest, a seer in the style of Pantheon, channeling prophecy through trance and madness. His ties to Merlin place him firmly in pagan tradition, one where wisdom comes from immersion in the natural world, not separation from it. But as Christianity reshaped the myth, Merlin changed. His wildness grew quieter. His visions became messages of divine will. His madness, once sacred, was reframed as something dangerous or sinful. Christian writers reworked the character into something more palatable, a servant of God's plan, born of darkness but useful to the light. His powers remained, but his source shifted. This transformation wasn't accidental. It reflects a broader cultural shift, one where the old gods were buried beneath new doctrine, where ancient knowledge was either rebranded or erased. Merlin survives, but in a form tailored to fit the new world. Druid becomes advisor, prophet becomes pawn. Even centuries after his last spell faded and his final prophecy was sealed away, Merlin returned. Renaissance magicians summoned him to their manuscripts. Victorian occultists placed him beside Hermes Trismegistus. Modern mystics spoke of him as a living presence, an ancient teacher guiding seekers towards hidden truths. In these traditions, Merlin becomes more than a wizard. He transforms into an ascended master, a figure of eternal wisdom moving through the ages unseen. His name appears in grimoires and secret orders, linking the old world to new currents of magic. Writers and ritualists treat him as a keeper of forgotten knowledge, a druid whose teachings never vanished, only retreated beneath the surface. This version of Merlin steps beyond the Christian world. He enters a space where myth and mysticism converge, where the forest and starlight share the same language. No longer bound to courts or scripture, he becomes a bridge between worlds, between the seen and the unseen. Across cultures, figures like this walk the same paths, wanderers who trade comfort for insight, prophets who speak truths few can carry, advisors who hold vision without holding power. Merlin mirrors Odin, who gives an eye for wisdom. He walks beside Tiresias, the seer burned by what he knows. He echoes Thoth, guardian of cosmic order and divine memory. Each form reflects the same shape, the one who sees further than others and bears the weight of knowing. This is why Merlin endures. Through forests, courts, monasteries, and mystic circles, he returns again and again, an echo of something ancient.
The wild man in the forest, the prophet in the court, the child of darkness, the maker of kings. Merlin moves through myth and memory like mist over stone, changing shape, slipping through certainty, never standing still. Perhaps there never was a single man. Perhaps there was only the need for one. A guide through chaos, a voice in the silence, a figure who sees what others cannot and carries what others will not. The greatest wizard that never was? Or something older than history, a mirror for our fears, a symbol of our hunger for wisdom, mystery, and meaning. And when a story speaks that deeply, does it even matter whether it was ever true?